Hi, it's Kirby Summers. It is the wee hours of the morning on Tuesday, November the 5th. And the reason I'm doing this podcast, it's twofold. It's a follow-up to the podcast I uploaded yesterday about Courtney Burgess and the gag order that Sean Diddy Combs' attorneys are requesting to put on him. And second, many of you have noticed that my throat, I've been having issues with my voice. And I'll ask you to not give me advice, thank you very much, on what to do for my voice. So I want to just get this out of the way first. When I began working on the Wexner series, and I want to just say, I'm sure many of you now are aware that whistleblowers are targeted. And that, and as an example, Kim Porter is no longer with us, right? There's a long list. Danny Casolaro is no longer with us. And Gary Webb shot himself twice in the head, right? After trying to expose the connection between CIA and the drugs infiltrating poor neighborhoods. So that it's no longer out of the realm of possibility that, say, someone like me or another whistleblower, and we've heard these things before, are perhaps targeted and made sick intentionally. So, what I will say is that I've been a very healthy person. I have been ill on and off. The good thing with me is I immediately contact a physician. From many things have happened. Like I've been contacted by attorneys. I have been trolled to death. I have been character assassinated. And this happened, frankly, even starting before I began deep diving into the Epstein case in 2019. However, it has escalated, and it's escalated to the point where it has affected my health. Now, have I been targeted with something? I don't know because my health started to really decline, although I get better, because I have medical attention and I do what's required of me. And so slowly I improve. And if you could heard me yesterday on yesterday's podcast, it sounded okay. My voice sounded strong. But as you can hear me today, it doesn't sound that strong anymore. And in fact, I'm in a lot of pain as I'm speaking with you. It became increasingly worse for me health-wise when I began my series on Wexner, which is on my Substack. It's up to 15 parts. And then, of course, I went to Jarecki, who is the MK Ultra German trained physician who was on Epstein's beck and call, and against whom a victim sued for him having turned her into a slave. And now, when I say the word slave, you can fill in the word that comes before that. So during the time that I was a slave, and I tried to explain to people, and I used that terminology, no one understood it. So that when it started to go mainstream, initially during the Epstein case, and now much more since Sean Combs has been arrested, I have personally felt a sense of relief. Oh, finally, people understand what a slave means. It means that you're doing something because you've been coerced. And there's a long definition, there's trickery, coercion, blah, blah, blah. And the person that handed me over, because, I just want to fill in the blanks for people who have not read my memoir, which is The Billionaire's Woman. And by the way, people have been intentionally leaving bad reviews to silence me. And then now I am being silenced literally after I've been trying to tell my truth for 30 years. My voice is being attacked, and maybe my entire life again, because there have been three attempts to murder me that I am aware of. In one of them, I was taken hostage, held in my apartment for 5 days. I managed to escape. I write about that in my book, The Billionaire's Woman, so that the issues with my throat really began at the time that I started to work on the Wexner series, because I did a really deep dive. No one else has done what I've done. And I have been baffled. Some of you have come to me and said, "Hey, are you sure that you're not being targeted?" And like, I don't consider myself a targeted individual. I'm not saying that I am. But even one of my friends who's as straight as they come and, who hasn't, opened his eyes maybe to the reality of our world and the truths that are coming to light in the Sean Combs case, even one of my friends like that wondered if while walking the street, somebody hasn't brushed up against me in some way, because he explained to me that I could have been somehow infected with something just by someone touching me. And this guy um, has a lot of knowledge of chemistry and things like that. And I just thought that when he was telling me this some months ago, that I didn't really like latch on to that, and I found it a little improbable. However, I'm not finding it improbable anymore because I am following the doctor's instructions. I do get better, and then I relapse, if you will. And so I'm going to keep working and I'm going to keep doing what I have to do. But what I have noticed is that there has been in the hip hop industry, because I started to look into that when I was working on my Rachel Chandler second edition, which is on only available on my Substack. And by the way, I'm not uploading anything else to Amazon because they have been messing with my books and I'm having a lot of issues. I may even be pulling everything off Amazon. I am not sure yet, but I'm certainly not going to add anything to Amazon. So that when I was working on the second edition of my book on Rachel Chandler's ancestors, and I included information about Sean Combs. I also I got very, very sick during that period, really sick to the point where I was being told to take myself to the emergency room. But I had a deadline. It was the 15th of October, and I always keep my word. If I say something is going to drop on such and such a date, not one of you can say I haven't kept my word. For 5.5 years, if I say something is going to be up on such and such a time, it happens. You can set your clock on my word because I've never not kept it. So I had given October 15th as the date for the dropping the book. And as it got closer and closer to that date, I just got sicker and sicker, where, I was almost going to send an email to everyone who had ordered the book explaining, or just not really going into my health issues, but basically saying that it was going to be somewhat delayed. But I really hate to disappoint the people who support my work. So I didn't do that and I kept working. Um, Now that I have said that, I just want to address the fact that yesterday I said that I believed Courtney Burgess. And as you know, Courtney Burgess has been on mainstream, he's been on different podcasts, and Sean Combs' attorneys came out yesterday, or no, Sunday night, and they sent in a request to the judge to issue a gag order against him. So now he's backtracking. I've heard him backtrack on a lot of the information that he was initially discussing. Now, some people are claiming he's just full of BS. And my opinion of it, based on the long series of dead rappers that I have studied after I posted the video yesterday, and I started to look at stuff because this morning I tweeted, well, this morning, it's not even morning yet, about, I don't know, a half hour ago, I tweeted that if the Clinton body count is high, it's nothing compared to the music industry. So the music industry at large, and even Hollywood, the entertainment industry, um, has a very high death toll for people who are younger, so they die uh, suddenly of a heart attack. Now we've heard pneumonia, and my symptoms have all been pneumonia, which I've battled, and then it crops up again. I don't want you guys to like wish me to take care of myself. I know you mean well, but it doesn't help the matter. I just want to explain things to you because you're my family. You're my extended family. I've been sharing things with you for 5.5 years. So I want you to know what's going on. I think that's what's happening with Courtney Burgess is he does not want to become a statistic in the music industry because he is now reneging on anything having to do with male on male in the industry or required favors in order to move ahead. And I think that as I have tried to explain when I have tried to discuss the friend of Ghislaine Maxwell, who had an untimely situation while he was in jail. And I have to pick my words very carefully on this platform. And then before that, with the Franklin scandal that reared its head in the mid 1980s. And while somebody like Nick Bryant, who initially was my friend, and we had a falling out because he did not include MK Ultra in his book, and I found it odd. And I don't mind telling you this. I mean, he may be very well intentioned. I don't know. My point is that coming into this 5.5 years ago, I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know who to trust because I had had people inserted into my life so often for so many years who turned out to be plants, just like Rose McGowan had plants in her life, just like a lot of these people have that we're hearing about in the music industry have plants in their life. So initially, when I began to share my information, I'll just be straight up with you. I was having an Ask Me Anything on Reddit because some people suggested that I do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it because I was bringing information that I knew personally about my own experience and about Wexner and about the entire billionaire um, group that we have been studying. And uh, these people, I think one of them was Piers Redman, who I don't know much about, but I remember him and I remember Ed Opperman, both of them coming to me and asking me intrusive questions. In Opperman's case, he wanted to know he wanted to quote represent me if I memory serves me right into contacting my abuser. And frankly, it's 30 years after the fact, and I have gone to attorneys very high level attorneys during the past 30 years. And I have been stopped at every juncture. So I didn't know who he was. And I don't know much about him still. But my point to you is that it didn't matter who approached me at the time. I just did not know the person, and clearly I was afraid for my safety. And so my response to everyone was very kind of full with maybe paranoia. But when so many things happen to you, you're going to be suspicious about somebody else's intentions. And so I kind of pushed away these people. And sorry, it's just my throat is giving me a hard time. So I think that the reason Courtney Burgess is now backtracking and being he's contradicting a lot of his statements is because he is afraid of maybe becoming a statistic and following in the steps of, let's say, Kim Porter as an example. I will be writing something up on my Substack. If you haven't joined, that's where I have a very most of my body of work. Nothing is going to stop me from sharing things with you. I just have to be careful of what I share on each platform for obvious reasons. I need to stop now because it's getting very painful to talk. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Courtney Burgess and the fact that he's backtracking. I'm curious to hear from you specifically if you understand that the initial allegations have been the norm for a very long, long time, going back to the 50s, preceding the 50s, that somebody like Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Craig Spence, Larry King, Sean Combs, that it's part of the same thing. And if you understand this is just the norm, which has been kept under the surface until now, we're not going to have this open window forever. We have tides. If you have noticed, during the 2000s, I kept trying to come forward and I kept being pushed back. During the 2000s, you almost heard of no whistleblowers. I was viciously trying because my life was at risk again, and I knew it. And so I really, really attempted to come forward in the 2000s. I'll just give you one more piece of information. What I did in the 2000s was I wrote during a 4-day period a sort of like an outline of my book, and I uploaded it to a blog hosted by a financial reporter for the New York Times. And I uploaded it there, and I thought he was going to delete it, but he didn't. But in the meantime, he died. What happened was that excerpt, kind of, it's more of a summary that I uploaded, and I think it was in 2008 or 2009 that I did that. My abuser ended up, he already had AI. You guys are hearing about AI doing writing now. No, he already had that. And he also had like a stake in a company that did a couple of things. They protected somebody's identity who had been exposed as being a P person. So he had a company that was, their titles are Reputation Defender, and they will write fake articles. And yes, Forbes accepts these fake articles. All of them do because they all work for the same people. They'll write fake articles in order to um, push down any real information that's trying to come up to the surface. They will also contact the host of that website to bring down the material. And in many cases, they were successful in that. So he had a hand in that. He had a hand in a lot of things, you know. Um, so what he did with an AI is almost overnight, there were over 1,000, I am not exaggerating. If you put in the billionaire's woman or anything having to do with what I had put up on this guy's blog as a comment, it would come up with a mishmash of the words. But included in the mishmash of the words was the word murder. And the implication, you know, one of my closest friends explained to me at the time, because I didn't know about AI in 2009, but one of my closest, or 2008, whenever it might have been, he explained to me that it was computer generated. However, he also said that there seems to be an implied threat here, you know, against your life. And so, you know, if you tried to pull anything up that I had written, all of his stuff that he had posted had his, you know, his people post drowned my blog post that guy was kind enough to keep. And as I said, he's long dead. I haven't checked to see if it's still there because I then published my book, The Billionaire's Woman. And yeah, I have had a lot of issues since then. All right, guys, I want to wish you a nice day. And I want to thank you deeply for your ongoing um, emotional support of me, as well as the fact that you have joined me on my other platforms. Bye.